Hey there, this is Misha, and I'm at my farm, Myrtle Glen Farm, which is on the southern Oregon coast, and I'm in my blueberry patch today. And today I wanted to talk about propagation of blueberries. So I have my large patch here, and the plants are getting pretty old, and I want to eventually replace them. So I want to propagate from these plants here so that I can eventually replace all of these. And one of the best ways to propagate is by stem cuttings, and specifically hardwood cuttings are best for the month of March. And then there's also softwood cuttings, which is the tender new growth, and you usually take that in May when these shrubs become alive, essentially. They wake up from the winter and send up new tender shoots. So you can also do that type of propagation. But right now it's almost into the month of March, and I want to take hardwood cuttings. So hardwood cuttings are essentially stems that are old enough that they've become woody. So you can feel them. They don't snap very easily. They're pretty shrubby and woody. So when you're looking at your blueberry plants, or just your individual blueberry plant, you're going to want to make sure it's the healthiest one you've got, or choose the healthiest ones you have. And then you're going to want to look for shoots that are essentially going straight up, like these ones here that I found off of a different blueberry plant. And you usually want these tips that don't have lateral growth yet on them. So this is a really good example of a good hardwood cutting. And each one is going to need to be 4 to 6 inches. So you could probably get 2 out of these. So that's a good hardwood cutting. Let's see if we get, here's another good one. You just take right at the base of the stem there. Here's another good one. You can take a few of these. And then something that you could also do is look down at the base for your youngest canes and pull from that. So let's see if we can find any down here. There's a few wrapped up in here. Here's a pretty good one. Actually, let's move to the other side. So here's some younger ones that you could take from. And you don't want to take too many from the younger canes, because that's going to eventually be your fruiting wood. So you want to definitely limit your harvesting of that wood there. Here's also another good one. And so what's going to happen is you're going to acquire some type of neutral substrate. So I'd say sand or sawdust, just something that's not heavily fertilized. Coconut coir is another good one. And what you're going to do is cut at the base just below a node. And a node is just essentially a bud where another stem or leaf is going to come out. So they usually alternate on blueberries. And you're just going to cut right underneath that. Then you're going to apply some root hormone, and then that is going to get stuck into your substrate. And anywhere there's a node underneath the soil, that's where your blueberry cutting will root. So it's a good idea to have a decent number of nodes beneath the substrate surface, so you get some nice root action. And we'll go ahead and show you how to do that in the next part. Okay, when you have all your cuttings collected, you're going to want to cut them in sections if they're too long. So remember, the 4 to 6 inch sections is fine, and remember to cut right underneath the node. And I kind of like to cut at an angle just so I know what's the bottom and top. And this one can get cut into for the most part. Okay. And a good thing to remember is to keep your cuttings upright so you remember which way to put them in. Sometimes people cut at an angle at the top just to let them know that that's the top. So you can do either way. And what you're going to do next is you're going to want to get some rooting hormone, and this is a root hormone gel, and I think it's easiest to apply. So it's just essentially a hormone that helps the cutting send its energy into rooting instead of flowering or leafing. So you're going to want to dip a little bit of the stem into the rooting hormone. And it doesn't need to be very much, just a nice little coating. And you're going to want your substrate. This is just a sawdust. And you can do it in pots, you could do it in a bed. There's a lot of different ways you could do it. I'm just doing it in a simple pot just to save on some space. And you're just going to want to poke holes that are about, an inch apart. So you could probably fit like 4 in here. That's probably a good amount. And then once you've dipped the rooting hormone in, you're just going to want to stick it pretty far down. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nodes down. So all those 5 nodes are going to root under the soil level. So yeah, you can keep doing that with your other stems, and just kind of firm it up too, so it's growing straight up. Do one more. That's probably a good amount there. Just a nice spacing. You're probably going to get about 80% rooting success, so just keep that in mind. Rarely is it ever 100, but 80% is pretty good. So you could do a few of these pots. And then you're going to want to put it in a pretty sheltered location. So a greenhouse or a lathe house is good. You're going to want to mist this after you get all the cuttings in there. And then some people like to cover it up with like a Ziploc bag that has holes in it, and you can put a rubber band around right here. And that just essentially keeps the moisture in, so you don't have to consistently water it. So you want to be pretty balanced as far as watering it. You don't want to water too much, or else the cuttings are going to rot. So just keep an eye on it. But the plastic bag helps quite a bit. And again, this goes in a sheltered location. And it could take, as little as a few months to root, but I would let this root for a few months, and then you can check if they've rooted successfully by tugging, and it should resist, and that's how you know it's rooted successfully. And then once you know that rooting is successful, then you could up pot these to 1 individual per gallon pot. So yeah, that's essentially the basics of blueberry propagation. I hope you enjoyed the video, and feel free to look at any of our other videos online on this channel.